interrupt our program to bring you a special broadcast. The German news agency Transocean said today in a broadcast.
Here's another late development, and this news keeps coming in.
What is up, Kryptonians? And finally, we have arrived at the end of another year. 2024 was a great year for cinema. I know a lot of people like to get online and get on social and talk about, oh, it was a shitty year for movies. I didn't like a lot of movies. To be fair, there were a lot of bad movies that came out this year. There was a lot of great movies this year, too. I actually had a really tough time narrowing this list down to only 10 spots. Before we get started, the usual disclaimers and disclosures and all the other words that are in the English language. This is just my personal list. Doesn't mean that my list is objectively better than anybody else's. It doesn't mean that the films that I saw that are on this list are, like, objectively speaking, the best films in the history of the world. If you see movies on this list that you disagree with, that's awesome. I want to see your list so I can shit all over yours too. I'm kidding. I'm not gonna shit all over your list. I wouldn't do that. Out loud. The point is, let's be respectful, let's have some fun. I want to see what your lists are like too. Everybody's got a different one, just like everybody got a booty hole. Secondly, these are not the only films that I loved this year. I loved a lot of films, but I just couldn't fit them all onto one list. In fact, let's rattle off those honorable mentions. Smile 2, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Juror Number 2, The Substance, Heretic, Long Legs, Sonic 3, Rebel Ridge, and The Shadow Strays. These are films that probably would have made my top 10 list if my top 10 films of the year did not exist. Like, if I had a top 20 list, they would absolutely be on there. As it stands, I like to pick 10 honorable mentions before I get started every year. Without further ado, cracking my knuckles again for absolutely no reason. I do it every year and I don't know why. I didn't do it last year because I didn't do a list last year, but still, I would have done it. But no more scuttlebutt and beating around the bush. Let's get into this top 10 list. Coming in at number 10 is a movie that feels like it's kind of divisive among regular people, but I feel like most fans love this movie. It's a movie that embraces the old while also kind of pushing things in a new, weirder direction. I, of course, am talking about Alien Romulus. Alien Romulus had god-tier production design, it had god-tier cinematography, it had great performances, it had great thrills, the xenomorphs themselves looked amazing in the movie, and there were some great kills. A movie that's formulaic, sure, but sometimes there's nothing wrong with going back to a formula that works. If you were trying to solve a math problem using the tools that your teacher gave you to solve that problem, would you try to solve your problem in a different way than you've done before? No, you would try to solve that problem the same way that we all try to solve math problems. By saying, fuck math, because nobody has time for that shit. I know that's right. I know the real ones out there feel what I'm talking about. Either way, Alien Romulus gave me everything I hoped and expected from a film like this. At this point in the franchise, the movie was a financial success, so maybe we'll see more of these characters going forward. Coming in at number 9, I feel like is one of the more underrated films of the year. In fact, I'm pretty sure that 96% of the world is not gonna have this movie on their list. There's something about Monkey Man. There's something about Monkey Man that gets my rocks off. It curls my toes, it stuffs my taco. That was probably a much more juvenile way of putting it, but you guys somewhere understand what I'm trying to say. Monkey Man is Dev Patel's directorial debut, and he put his heart, his soul, his entire bussy into this movie. It's incredibly well directed in terms of the fight choreography and the action sequences. It's a well shot movie that also has some really good music that also feels like it's a love letter to all the different eras of action cinema that came before. You watch this movie and you see the DNA of Jet Li movies, Jackie Chan movies, definitely a lot of John Wick influence. Like, it's a movie about revenge. It's a movie made with passion, a lot of heart. I love movies where I can see that shine through on the screen. At number 8 is one of the most intense and weirder movies that's on the list, Love Lies Bleeding. Love Lies Bleeding is a romance movie. Kirsten Stewart and I think her name is Katie O'Brien. I hope I'm not getting her name wrong. In case you haven't noticed, I get a lot of names wrong on this channel. It doesn't mean that my heart's not in the right place or my brain isn't in the wrong place. It's got some great editing. It's also got some creative choices that are gonna put some people off, but for me, it was kind of like, oh shit, that's interesting. In fact, that's so interesting that might make my list at the end of the year. If you're looking for a romantic movie with some exciting but intense moments, if you're looking for a movie that is about something bigger but also is a very small, self-contained type of film, look no further than Love Lies Bleeding, because after I saw the movie, that's what I was. I was loving it, and I was lying down. Okay, I wasn't bleeding, but I was... You guys can take the metaphor to a different place if you want to. The Wild Robot is one of the best animated films of 2024. The Wild Robot has amazing visuals, amazing music, Lupita Nyong'o voicing a robot. I mean, they had me at that. And then you combine this with a really beautiful story about a mother like raising a goose, a robot mother raising a goose in the wild. But it's also a movie about community, about how in tough times we need to pull together, not pull apart. Mostly it's about the ups and downs and the pitfalls of parenthood. I feel like most people can relate to a story like that. God tier visuals alone would probably get this to honorable mention status, but when you add everything else into it, and again, Lupita Nyong'o, the fact that I worship pretty much everything that woman does, there's no way this movie was not going to make my list as soon as I saw it. And I saw it 3 times in theaters, and every time I loved it even more. Number 6, we have another candidate for one of the best animated movies of the year. It's a shame most of you didn't go see this movie. Transformers 1 is one of the best Transformers movies that a Transformers fan could ever ask for. It's a great origin for Megatron and for Optimus Prime. It's a movie that somehow combines these really heavy adult things into something that kids can process. But when this movie needs to get emotional, when it needs to get dark, when it needs to get a little heavy, I love that it was not afraid to go there. Admit it, there was a small part of you when Megatron was yelling about, "I'm gonna kill him and I'm gonna drag his body all over the street." Small part of you was like,
he's out of line, but he's right.
I mean, is he not spitting? Like, is he not, am I not supposed to root for Megatron? Okay, I'm not supposed to. I get it. It's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. You can't root for him, but he's kind of right. Number 5 features one of the most unique screenplays that I saw all of 2024. Strange Darling is a movie that kept me guessing throughout the entire runtime. Every time you think you've got this movie figured out, bam, it hits you upside the head and goes the other direction. This is one of those screenplays where it subverts your expectations. It subverts your expectations in a really beautiful way that really adds to the story and adds to everything that they're doing. Sometimes when people subvert expectations, it doesn't always work out. I do personally feel like it worked out really well in this case. I love the cat and mouse, the hunt and the chase element of this movie. Incredibly well executed. So much tension coming from not knowing who to root for and also not knowing what's gonna happen moment by moment. I love movies like that can surprise me. Coming in at number 4 on this list is one of the sexiest movies of 2024 that oddly didn't have a ton of graphic sex scenes or anything in it. Granted, it does have scenes of Zendaya just like making out with people and getting like touched and groped and stuff like that, which is not the reason I put it on this list. Absolutely. It has nothing to do with how I feel about Zendaya. It's about the quality of the movie. All jokes aside, this movie has some god tier editing. It also has one of the best musical scores that I heard in all of 2024. Zendaya gives one of the best performances because for the first time in her career, she's portraying someone that's not inherently likable. Like if you look at her character in this movie, her character's kind of a piece of shit, but you understand why she is the way she is. You also understand why the other characters in the movie are moving the way they're moving. As someone who's always been a casual about tennis, like I've never really cared unless Serena or Venus were dominating. This movie sort of made me more interested in tennis. The tennis scenes were well filmed, very creatively shot. You're looking for a movie that's got style, that's got pizzazz, that's got music, that's got Zendaya. I mean, for number 4, we'll go with Challengers. I'm just gonna come out and say it. At number 3, we have one of the most criminally underrated films of 2024. Furiosa, or Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, deserved way more love, deserved way more attention in my opinion than it actually got. That's not just box office, that's me talking about awards that also I simultaneously sometimes act like don't matter. So maybe I'm a little bit of a hypocrite when it comes to that, but either way, it doesn't matter. The point is, Furiosa is a certified banger. Not quite as heavy metal, zany, over the top madness that the first one was, but that's kind of what makes it a great movie anyways. It's doing its own thing, it's forging its own path, it's telling a great origin story about Furiosa, building up her character and building her up into the badass that we see her in Mad Max Fury Road. This movie does a great job at expanding the world of the Mad Max universe without compromising everything that you love about it. There are some action scenes in this movie that literally lifted my soul from my body, and my soul was dancing above the clouds watching it with me. My only regret is that George Miller might be done and we might not get any more movies after this, which kind of sucks, but you know what? At least I have Furiosa. That he gave me that. I can never be mad at George Miller for anything else he does in life. And my number one and my number two films have been flip-flopping for the last week. Like, they have been throwing hands in both sections of my brain. I tried flipping a coin. I didn't like that. I tried doing bubblegum. I didn't like doing that shit either. This movie for like 98% of the year was easily my favorite movie of the year, and I didn't think anything could or would ever top it. And then I saw something late in the year that was kind of like, damn it, I gotta stick to my integrity. Dune Part II. I don't even have much to say other than it's a fucking masterpiece. It's one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time. Denis Villeneuve perfectly, or near perfectly, I won't say it's a perfect adaptation of the book, but it's a near perfect adaptation of the book, of the themes, of that story. Timothée Chalamet, in one of his best performances, perfectly embodies Paul Atreides. I love Zendaya. I love all the actors working here, but I also just love the passion and the amount of detail that was put into the filmmaking here. Some of the best cinematography, not just of the year, but that your eyes will ever see. The way that this film was shot, the way that this film is edited is a masterpiece. The way that the music in this movie hits, like Hans Zimmer was deep in his duffel for this one. I don't want to spend too much time talking about Dune because I could honestly spend the rest of the video talking about Dune, but unfortunately there is one other movie that unfortunately I had to choose. So here we go. Number one. I just didn't want to choose it over Dune 2, but then I saw it a second time the other day and I was just like, yeah, Nosferatu has to be number one on my list. Nosferatu is gothic as fuck, it's dark as fuck, it's heavy as fuck, it's all the as fucks you could put up with in a movie like this. I've already talked about cinematography too much on this list, but there's no denying that the cinematography for this movie was amazing. Design of Orlok, or, you know, Dracula as most people will know him, it took me a little bit to warm up to him, but I love Bill Skarsgård. I love what he's doing with his voice here. I love that this movie is kind of a loose adaptation of the original book, and I love that you can take bits and pieces of it and find Bram Stoker's Dracula hidden somewhere in the crevices in the DNA of this film. Depp Rose, I've never seen her give a better performance. It's impossible to look at her the same way. Really everybody, Willem Dafoe, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Nicholas Hoult. Robert Eggers has crafted his magnum opus, his masterpiece, his Don te la point. That's a made-up word in French. I'm pretty sure French people don't say stuff like that. Magnifique. I don't know what the actual word is for masterpiece in French, but apply it. Apply it to all the languages in the world. That's what this movie embodies. Sure, it's a little bit slow at times. Sure, it's a little bit overbearing, overwhelming, sensory-wise, but still, it's my type of weird, it's my type of dark, it's my type of heavy, and that's why it makes number one on my list of my top 10 favorite films of 2024. We had a great 2024. Let's try to have an even better 2025. Go ahead and tell me what you think about my list. Give me your list in the comment section down below. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and if you like what you see, tell me how you feel and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.